Hi, and welcome to yet another term in the AI Terms Explained for C# developers. And the term today is fine-tuning. A disclaimer, this is the only term that I actually haven't used in real life. I have researched it, but not used it in real life like all the others. But I can still tell you about what it is, and I can also reveal a little why I haven't used it. Because fine-tuning is the process of changing the behavior of an LLM. And the way you do that is providing a set of training data, meaning some input and some desired output to the LLM, so it can learn new ways of answering. It could be that you want to, you're a lawyer company and you need to talk in a specific manner. It could be that you have a lot of industry terms that are very, very difficult for an AI to use. It could, for example, be in basketball, there's a term called travel on. Yeah, I actually don't know that much about basketball, but the word travel, of course, in an LLM has a lot of due to going from place to place and visiting different countries and so on. So if the NBA have an LLM, they are probably fine-tuned it in order to learn that specific terms and the other terms you have in the sport. But fine-tuning should actually be a very large result because it's time-consuming and it's very costly. Normally with AIs, you pay by the token, but in fine-tuning, you begin also to pay by the hour for hosting your fine-tuned model. So it's more expensive and you need to train, you need to make this training data and so on. So I have not yet come to a situation with all my ways of working with LLMs that I needed fine-tuning. I could work with prompt engineering, I could work with RAG, and many people think they need fine-tuning, but it's actually not the case. The way you do it in, for example, Azure OpenAI is you choose a model, in this case ChatGPT 4o, and you do supervised learning. There's reinforcement learning and various different types. And then you give it a bunch of training data, which is just a bunch of questions and a bunch of answers that you know is correct. And then you give it another set of the data. It's normally like you give it 70% as training data and the last 30% as validation data. So it has seen the 70% of your data, and that is what it's trained on. And the last 30% is what it's being tried to be asked and see if it can actually answer in the right way as you expect it to, and so on. So you train the data, you validate, and you check if it has actually improved, because that's not a given depending on your data. And then you do it again and again and again until the LLM have gotten the point to work with that way of working. So it knows that when it needs to speak this specific way, it needs to know this word meaning something else, and so on. So again, in our NBA example, they will probably give it a lot of training data about what travel means, that when someone says travel, it means this, when this, and so on. And that is actually everything.